I'm Anthony DiLorenzo outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan with legal analyst Terry Austin, and we just had a major update in the Sean Combs trial where the jury released a note saying that they have come up with a verdict for counts 2 through 5, but they are deadlocked on count 1, the racketeering. What does this all mean, Terry?
Well, I think what it means is there's some uncertainty as to whether or not there was a conspiracy, because you need that in the RICO. Even if they found for those 8 predicate acts, they still need an agreement and a conspiracy amongst the co-defendants who are unindicted. The only one who obviously is indicted right now is Sean Combs. So I think they had some problem with that piece of it. 2, 3, 4, and 5, sex trafficking for Cassie and transportation to engage in prostitution for Cassie. I believe they will probably come back with guilty. It could be either way, but that's how I'm looking at the evidence right now. That 4th count is going to be sex trafficking as it relates to Jane. I'm mixed on that. I think it's a possibility. It could be not guilty. And then that transportation to engage in prostitution for Jane, I think, would be guilty, because both of those are identical. They had escorts, they transported those escorts, they were paid for commercial sex activity. So I think it'll be guilty probably on both of those. Unsure though.
So yeah, we still don't know. We might not know until tomorrow. Who knows? But let's talk about specifically the instructions that the judge has now given this jury. They've gone home for the day, still deadlocked on count 1. He has read to them that they should continue deliberating. However, he says they should not surrender their personal opinion. So do you think this will change anything tomorrow?
Maybe not. I think it was a great charge. He was asked about an Allen charge, which is when you sort of dynamite that jury and get them to consider the evidence and try to get them to make a decision. This was softer than that. He basically just reminded them of what he's already given them, which is to look at all the evidence, to take those facts and apply the law, to be respectful of each other, not to give in on their own personal views, but to come to a consensus if they can. And I think that was the right way to do at this point in time. Tomorrow, if they're still in the same place, then of course you might get a little more forceful, and that's what they were discussing, whether or not they should do a full Allen charge where they're really trying to get that jury to come to some sort of consensus.
So that's still possible tomorrow?
Absolutely. I do think that in light of the holiday, we will have a verdict tomorrow. It's hard to predict, and I try not to, but because of the holiday, I do think they have all day tomorrow. I think they'll be able, they only have one more, and Mark Agnifilo said this. They've done a great job. They've done 4 out of 5 counts. That is a lot in a very short amount of time. I think they will come to a consensus one way or another. It could be a mistrial on that because they can't come to a consensus, or maybe they'll persuade one side or the other.
So let's step back and see if we can process the note that was sent earlier today when they were asking specifically about the sex trafficking acts with Cassie and Daniel Phillip. How do you think that played into their decision making when they read back the testimony from the Intercontinental Hotel, the Essex Hotel assault, and the Cannes assault?
Fraud, force, or coercion. That's what they were trying to figure out. And so I do think they wanted to look at the details of each of those and determine whether or not, from the text and from what she said on that stand, it's all the testimony that we've seen in court, whether or not she was forced to do any of that. She did say she was. Some of the texts make it sound like this is consensual, and that's what they're trying to figure out. And they were only asking about Cassie at that point in time when they asked that question.
And did you notice any kind of mannerisms of the jurors when they came back in at the end of the day? Anything stick out to you? It seemed to me like some of them were just fed up. Others still had smiles on their faces, so that's a good sign.
That is a good sign. I did see a couple of them kind of look down. I think juror number 12, who remember was the alternate who stepped in, he's sort of perky and looks around, and I kind of think, even though he's not the foreperson, I kind of think he's maybe taking a lead. Even though he was an alternate, he just seems like he's pretty confident. So I don't know, I feel like even though they're not coming to a consensus, they're still getting along, they still have smiles on their faces, and I do think they'll be able to come to some sort of agreement, and they have a lot of respect for each other. They've worked hard.
They worked hard. They've deliberated now for about 13 hours. They have now gone home for the night. The judge is going to tell them to come. The judge has told them to come back here to deliberate on Wednesday, starting at 9 a.m., and it remains to be seen whether or not they will be here on Thursday because the rest of the courthouse is closed. However, they have the option to deliberate if need be, but everyone believes that we might have a jury announcing a verdict on Wednesday, so stay tuned for that.